Hello and welcome to Unheard Global History. The word pirate usually brings to mind a very specific image, does it not? A daring hero with a parrot on his shoulder, a treasure map in his pocket, a sword in his hand. We imagine a life of thrilling adventure, complete freedom, a chest full of gold coins buried on a deserted island. But the real life of a pirate during their famous golden age in the early 1700s was usually not romantic at all. It was a life chosen out of desperation, a way to escape the terrible, almost slave-like conditions on merchant ships or in the king's navy. It was a world of extreme boredom, sickness, and hard work, only interrupted by moments of intense danger. So tonight, we leave the legends behind and see what it was truly like. We step aboard one of these crowded wooden ships and explore the surprising democratic rules they lived by. We learn about the simple food they ate, the fears they faced, and why so many ordinary men chose a short, risky life under the black flag instead of a long, unhappy one serving a king. Now we travel back to a time of tarred rope, black powder, and open sea. Our story does not begin with a pirate. It begins with an ordinary person. Let us imagine that you are this person. You are not a hero, not a villain. You are simply a sailor somewhere in your early 20s. Your entire world is this small, damp wooden ship creaking its way across the vast and empty Atlantic Ocean. It is 2 hours before dawn and you are already exhausted. You were woken an hour ago. Not by a gentle shake, but by the sharp bark of the boatswain, the senior sailor in charge of the deck crew. Your hands are raw, blistered, healed, and blistered again from hauling on coarse, salt-stiffened ropes that control the massive sails above. The air is cold and heavy with salt spray that never seems to dry. It chills you to the bone. Every muscle in your back and shoulders aches from the relentless work of the previous day, and the day before that, and every day for the past 6 months since you left port in Bristol. This is your life on a merchant vessel in the year 1716. It is not a life of adventure. It is a life of unending, backbreaking labor. You and the few dozen other men on board are a tiny human island in an endless ocean, and your work never stops. You are constantly adjusting the rigging, climbing high into the masts on swaying ropes to furl or unfurl sails with nothing but 100 feet of empty air and the churning sea below you. You work the pumps to expel the foul, stagnant bilge water that constantly seeps into the hull. You scrub the decks. You mend the sails. You tar the ropes. You do this day in and day out, in blistering sun and freezing rain. For this ceaseless labor, you are paid a pittance, and even that payment is not guaranteed. As a sailor on a merchant ship, you are not paid your wages until the voyage is completely over. If the ship sinks, you receive nothing. If you die of disease or accident halfway through the journey, your family back home receives nothing. And if you make it all the way back to port, the captain, a man with absolute authority, can easily cheat you. A captain can invent fines for supposed infractions, a misplaced tool, a moment of perceived laziness, and deduct them from your hard-earned wages. You have seen it happen on every voyage. Men who worked for a year straight, only to end up with a few shillings in their pocket. Just enough to get drunk for a night before signing on to another ship to do it all over again. The food is worse than the pay. Your daily ration is a biscuit called hardtack, which is little more than flour, water, and salt baked into a cracker as hard as a piece of wood. It must be soaked in water or beer just to be chewed. And it is almost always infested with weevils, small black beetles that live in the barrels of flour. The meat is salted beef or pork stored for months in barrels. It is so saturated with salt that it must be scraped and soaked for hours before it can be choked down. The water is worst of all. It is stored in wooden casks where it quickly becomes stagnant, green, and slimy. This diet of salt and starch, with no fresh fruit or vegetables, leads inevitably to scurvy. You have seen men suffer from it. You have seen their gums bleed, their teeth fall out, their old wounds reopen, their minds grow confused, all from the lack of simple nourishment. And looming over all this hardship is the constant threat of discipline. The captain of a merchant ship is a king in his floating kingdom. His word is law. His primary tool of enforcement is the whip. The cat-o'-nine-tails, a whip with multiple knotted lashes, can turn a man's back into a ruin of bleeding flesh for the smallest offense. Arguing with an officer, being too slow to climb the rigging, or even simply being disliked by the captain. Any of these is enough to warrant a flogging. There is no trial, no appeal, only the sharp whistle of the lash, and the brutal searing pain. You know you are lucky in a way. You chose this life. Many sailors in the King's Royal Navy did not. They were pressed into service, kidnapped from the streets of a port town, or taken from another ship at sea and forced to serve. In the Navy, the discipline is even harsher, the work just as hard, and there is the constant added terror of being killed in a naval battle. Your world exploding in a shower of cannonballs and wooden splinters. So this is your world. A world of constant work, terrible food, stolen wages, and arbitrary, brutal punishment. Your future holds nothing more than an endless cycle of these miserable voyages until the sea or sickness finally claims you. Piracy is not a romantic notion to you. It is a whisper, a rumor, a story told by other sailors in hushed tones. It is a dangerous path, yes, but it is a different one. One gray morning, as you squint at the horizon, you see it. A strange sail. A fast-moving ship closing on your vessel with unnerving speed. It flies no colors you recognize. As it draws closer, the men around you begin to murmur. Their faces pale with fear. They know what this might be. But for you, buried beneath the fear, a different feeling begins to stir. A small, dangerous spark of something else entirely. The ship grows larger, slicing through the waves with a purpose your own vessel lacks. It is a sloop. A smaller, faster, more nimble ship than your bulky merchantman. You notice it is crowded with men. Far more than would be needed for a simple trading voyage. The captain of your ship shouts orders, his voice tight with fear. The men around you move with panicked energy. Then the moment of truth arrives. A puff of white smoke blossoms from the side of the approaching sloop. A second later, you hear the deep boom of a cannon. A cannonball skips across the water just in front of your ship's bow. It is a warning shot. A clear and universal signal on the high seas that means stop your vessel, or the next shot will not be a warning. Your captain is no fool. He knows his ship is slower. His crew is smaller. His few small cannons are no match for the firepower of a dedicated pirate vessel. To fight would be suicide. His cargo is insured by wealthy men in London. His life is not. He gives the order to strike the colors. To lower your ship's flag in a sign of surrender. The tension on deck shifts from panic to a grim, fearful resignation. The pirate sloop maneuvers skillfully alongside. With a crash of grappling hooks and rope, the two ships are bound together. And then they are aboard. They spill over the railing, not as a disorganized mob, but as a confident, organized crew. You see now that they are sailors just like you. Their faces are weathered by the same sun and sea. Their hands bear the same calluses from the ropes. But there is a difference. They move with an air of freedom and confidence you have never seen on a merchant ship. They are well armed. Each man carries a pistol tucked into his belt and a sword at his side. They quickly disarm your ship's officers and gather your crew on the main deck. You stand there, heart pounding, expecting the worst. But there is no immediate violence. Instead, a man steps forward who is clearly in charge, though he is not the captain. This is the quartermaster. On a pirate ship, he is the second in command. The man who represents the crew's interests, handles discipline, and is responsible for dividing any plunder. He is often more powerful than the captain in day-to-day life. His voice is calm and direct. He tells your crew that they have no interest in harming any ordinary sailor. They are here for the cargo and for anyone who wishes to join their company. He lays out the offer. You can stay with your captain, continue your voyage, and face the same life of misery and poverty you have always known. Or you can leave it all behind. You can join them. You can become one of them. A free man entitled to an equal share of every prize they take. You look at the faces of your crewmates. For most, fear wins out. They have families, homes, and a deep, abiding fear of the hangman's noose. But you see a few others. Men like you, with little to lose and no future to look forward to. You see the same spark in their eyes that you feel in your own chest. The choice, you realize, is truly yours. The pirates do not want to force you. They have escaped tyranny themselves. They have no interest in commanding a crew of unwilling captives. They want volunteers. Brothers who will willingly fight alongside them. So you weigh your life in that moment. On one side, a guaranteed future of backbreaking work, spoiled food, and the sting of the whip, all for wages you may never see. On the other, the promise of plunder, of freedom, of respect. It is the choice between a long, slow misery and a life that will likely be short, but at least will be your own. You and 2 other sailors step forward. The quartermaster grins. He gestures for you to cross over to the pirate ship. As you climb over the railing, leaving your old vessel and your old life behind, one of the pirates hands you a tin mug filled with a cloudy alcoholic liquid. It is grog. A simple drink of watered-down rum, sometimes mixed with lime or sugar. It is the lifeblood of sailors everywhere. But this mug tastes different. It tastes of freedom. Your old ship, now poorer by a few crewmen and a hold full of cargo, detaches and slowly sails away. You stand on the deck of a pirate vessel, surrounded by the so-called enemies of all mankind. You are now one of them. The initial relief begins to fade. It is replaced by a new, pressing reality. You have joined their society, but you do not yet know its laws. You stand on the deck of your new ship, the taste of grog still on your lips. The initial wave of adrenaline and relief has passed. It is replaced by a quiet uncertainty. You have escaped the tyranny of your old captain. But what have you joined? How can a ship full of men who have rejected all authority possibly function without tearing itself apart? The answer comes a short while later. The quartermaster, the man who invited you aboard, gathers you and the other new recruits. He unrolls a sheet of parchment, its edges worn from use. This, he explains, is the foundation of their society. These are the ship's Articles of Agreement, more famously known as the Pirate Code. You learn immediately that this is not a set of rules imposed from above. On this ship, there is no absolute king. Before any voyage, the entire crew gathers together. They debate. They argue. And they vote on every single rule written on this page. Every man, from the captain down to you, the newest recruit, has an equal say. The captain is elected and can be removed from command by a majority vote if the crew is not satisfied with his leadership. You have just joined not merely a ship's crew, but a floating democratic republic. It is a concept so radical, so contrary to the world you know, that it takes a moment to fully grasp. The quartermaster begins to read some of the key articles aloud, ensuring you understand the contract you are about to sign. First and most important, every man has an equal vote in the affairs of the moment. This means any major decision, whether to attack a ship, where to sail next, or what punishments to hand out, is decided by the crew as a whole. Second, no prey, no pay. You will receive no wages. Your payment is a fair share of whatever is plundered. The articles specify exactly how the loot will be divided. The captain might receive 2 full shares. The quartermaster perhaps 1.5. Skilled men like the ship's surgeon or carpenter might also receive a slightly larger portion. But you, as a regular sailor, are entitled to 1 full share. No deductions. No tricks. You will receive exactly what you are owed every single time. Third, there are rules of conduct. Any quarrel between 2 men must be settled on shore with pistols or swords, to prevent disruptive fighting on the crowded ship. There are to be no women allowed on board. Another rule designed to prevent jealousy and conflict among the crew. And every man is expected to keep his pistols and sword clean and ready for action at all times. Fourth, lights out at 8 o'clock. You learn this is not a strict bedtime. It is a critical fire safety rule. After 8 in the evening, there are to be no open flames from candles or lamps for gambling or drinking. On a wooden ship filled with barrels of gunpowder and tarred ropes, a single careless flame could doom everyone. And then comes the most surprising article of all. A system of compensation for injuries sustained in battle. This is their version of insurance. A man who loses his right arm in a fight might be awarded 600 pieces of 8, the common Spanish silver dollar that is the main currency of the seas. The loss of a leg might be worth 500 pieces of 8. An eye, 100. This money is paid out from the ship's treasury before the rest of the plunder is divided. It is a promise that your brothers will take care of you. A level of care and respect unimaginable on the merchant ship you just left. After reading the articles, the quartermaster lays the parchment on the lid of a barrel. He looks at you and the other new men. This is the final step. To join the Brotherhood, you must sign. You take the offered quill, dip it in ink, and make your mark on the document. By doing this, you enter into a sacred contract. You agree to live by these rules, to fight for your brothers, and to accept the severe punishments for breaking your oath. You have now formally sworn your allegiance. You are a full member of the crew, with a right to a vote and a right to a share of any prize. You are part of a society of outlaws governed by its own surprisingly fair and orderly laws. But a society is more than just its rules. It is also the physical space it occupies. With the formalities over, you take your first proper look around, seeing the ship not as a captive anymore, but as a resident. This is your home now. The very same sloop that ran down your old vessel with such ease. You understand now why it was chosen. It is not a massive warship, but it is lean and fast. A captured merchant vessel that has been transformed from a simple workhorse into a predator of the sea lanes. Your new crew has already made modifications. You see more cannons on deck than a merchant ship would ever carry. Their black iron muzzles stare out from newly cut gun ports. The decks have been cleared of unnecessary clutter to make more room for fighting. This vessel has been hardened. You walk the main deck, taking in the controlled order. There are thick coils of rope neatly tied down. There are pyramids of iron cannonballs secured with netting. You see spare spars, the long wooden poles used to hold the sails, lashed to the sides of the ship, ready to replace any that might be broken in a storm or in battle. You close your eyes for a moment and simply listen. You hear the constant deep groan of the ship's timbers, like an old man's sigh. You hear the rhythmic lapping of the waves against the hull, a sound that will be with you day and night. Above, you hear the sharp snap of the canvas sails as they catch the wind, and the high, lonely cry of a seabird. It is a symphony of wood, wind, and water. The smells are just as strong. The clean, sharp scent of the salt spray mixes with the pungent, almost medicinal smell of the tar used to waterproof the ship's wood and ropes. But the real heart of the ship, you soon discover, is below deck. As you climb down the ladder into the gloom, thick, warm, heavy air envelopes you. This is the 'tween deck, the main living quarters. There are no private cabins here. No walls. No doors. This single low-ceiling space is where you and 80 other men will sleep. You see rows upon rows of hammocks, lengths of canvas slung from the overhead beams. They are hung so close together that you can easily reach out and touch the man next to you. You learn that hammocks are a brilliant innovation, adopted by pirates and sailors from the native peoples of the Americas. Unlike a fixed bunk or a simple mattress on the floor, a hammock sways with the constant rolling motion of the ship, cradling you and preventing you from being thrown to the wet floor during rough seas. The air down here is a complex mixture of smells. It smells of unwashed bodies, of stale rum, of damp wool, and something else. A foul, sour smell rising from below. This, you are told, is the bilge. The bilge is the very bottom of the ship's hull. A dark, inaccessible space where all the foul water collects. Sea water that leaks through the planks. Spilled food and drink. All other forms of waste. It gathers down there, sloshing back and forth into a putrid soup. Its stomach-turning smell is a constant presence, a scent that permeates the very wood of the ship. It is the defining smell of your new home. You realize that on this vessel there is no such thing as privacy. You will eat, work, and sleep within arm's reach of 80 to 100 other men. You now understand why the ship's articles have such strict rules against fighting on board. In such a crowded and intimate space, small disagreements could easily boil over into dangerous violence if not properly managed. You find an empty space between two cannons and are shown how to sling your own hammock. As you lie back in the gently swaying canvas, you listen to the symphony of the ship's sounds. The creaking wood. The snoring men. The distant waves. You are surrounded by this new family. You know the rules. You know the layout of your new home. But what do you actually do all day? You wake to the gentle rocking of your hammock. It is dark, but you hear the sounds of men stirring around you. Your first full day as a pirate is about to begin. The question that formed in your mind as you fell asleep, what do you actually do all day, is about to be answered. You quickly learn that a pirate's life is not one of lazy leisure, waiting for a prize to appear. A pirate ship is a complex machine, and it demands constant attention. Your day, and your entire existence at sea, is governed by the watch system. The crew is divided into two halves or watches. Your half is on duty for a 4-hour shift, then off duty for the next 4 hours, in a relentless cycle that repeats all day and all night. There is no weekend. No day off. There is only the watch. During your time on watch, the work is familiar yet different. The most important task is, of course, sailing the ship. You and your watchmates are constantly trimming the sails, pulling on ropes to adjust their angle to catch the wind in the most efficient way possible. It is a delicate art. A constant conversation between the crew, the sails, and the wind. But most of the work is maintenance. Endless. Repetitive. Yet vital maintenance. You spend hours sitting on the deck with a mallet and a chisel, performing a task called caulking. This means hammering sticky, tarred rope fibers called oakum into the seams between the wooden planks of the deck and hull. It is a slow, tedious job, but it is what keeps the ship from taking on water and sinking. On other days you are sent aloft with a bucket of tar to coat the rigging, protecting the thick ropes from being destroyed by the relentless sun and salt spray. You scrub the decks, not only to keep them clean, but to scour away the slippery green algae that grows in the damp sea air. You check the cannons, making sure they are secure, that the mechanisms are clean, and that the nearby gunpowder stores are kept perfectly dry. Sometimes you are assigned lookout duty. You climb the rigging high to the crow's nest, a small wooden platform at the top of the main mast. From here, you are the eyes of the ship. The view is immense. A full circle of nothing but the endless shifting blue of the ocean. Your task is to stare into that emptiness for hours, searching for the one thing that matters. Another sail. It is a lonely, hypnotic duty. When your 4-hour watch is finally over, you are relieved by the other half of the crew. But your time off watch is not truly leisure. This is when you eat your rations. This is when you must find time to sleep, to gather your strength for the next shift. And this is when you perform your own personal maintenance. Sharpening your knife. Mending a tear in your shirt. Washing your clothes in a bucket of seawater. After 4 hours of hard physical labor, the desire for sleep is often overwhelming. The tasks themselves are nearly identical to the work you did on the merchant ship. And yet everything is different. There is no bosun screaming insults at you. There is no officer threatening you with the whip for a minor mistake. The men work together with a quiet efficiency. They know the ship is their own. A well-maintained vessel is a faster vessel, more likely to catch a prize. A clean cannon is a weapon that will fire true when it is needed. You are not working out of fear. You are working for a shared purpose. You are a shareholder in this enterprise, and the work you do directly contributes to your own potential fortune. The mood is lighter. The conversations are freer. You are treated as an equal. A brother. The days begin to bleed into one another, marked only by the changing of the watch and the position of the sun. The rhythm of work, eat, sleep, work becomes your entire world. You realize that the great enemy on these long voyages between prizes is not the Royal Navy, nor is it the storm. It is the vast, soul-crushing boredom of the open sea. As you fall into this routine, you begin to observe the men around you more closely. You see how this society truly functions. You see that the captain is respected and his orders are followed in battle. But in the day-to-day life of the ship, it is the quartermaster the men listen to. It is the quartermaster who settles disputes, who distributes the rations, who seems to hold the true balance of power. As the weeks pass, you begin to understand the answer to the question that has been forming in your mind. How does a ship full of outlaws govern itself? You see now that it is not one man who leads, but two, in a delicate and ingenious balance of power specifically designed to prevent the kind of tyranny you escaped. First there is the captain. You notice that he is treated with a certain respect. He is the expert sailor, the master navigator, the man who can read the waves and the stars. His primary duty is to guide the ship and to command it in battle. He is, in essence, the ship's war chief. When a potential prize is spotted on the horizon, a change comes over the vessel. The democratic, almost casual atmosphere instantly sharpens. In that moment, the captain's authority becomes absolute. His orders are obeyed at once and without question by every man on board. He decides the angle of attack, when to fire the cannons, and when to board. During a chase or a battle, he is the undisputed king of the vessel. This is a practical matter. In the chaos of combat, there is no time for debate or a vote. The crew places its trust in his skill to win the prize and keep them alive. But here is the crucial difference. As soon as the battle is over, his absolute power vanishes. He steps back and once again becomes a man among equals. He is still the captain, but he cannot order a man flogged for a minor insult. He cannot change the destination of the ship on a whim. He cannot even claim the largest portion of the captain's cabin for himself without the agreement of the crew. He was elected to his position. If he proves to be a coward in battle or consistently fails to find prizes, the crew can hold a vote at any time and depose him, electing a new captain in his place. The true power in the day-to-day life of the ship, you learn, belongs to the quartermaster. He is the peace chief. While the captain is the crew's leader, the quartermaster is the crew's advocate. He is the voice of the men, elected to protect their interests and ensure fairness. His responsibilities are vast. He is in charge of the ship's stores, distributing the daily rations of food and water to ensure every man receives his equal share. He is the ship's judge and jury. If you have a dispute with another sailor, you do not take it to the captain. You take it to the quartermaster. He listens to both sides and makes a ruling, and his decision is respected. He also administers all punishments that the crew has voted on according to the articles. If a man is to be flogged, it is the quartermaster, not the captain, who gives the order, removing that power of personal vengeance from the captain's hands. When a prize is taken, the quartermaster leads the boarding party. He decides what plunder is to be taken from the captured vessel, and he is the keeper of that plunder until it can be brought to a safe port and divided. He ensures that every coin, every bolt of cloth, every barrel of wine is accounted for and shared out exactly as the articles prescribe. You now see the genius of this system. It is a separation of powers born from the bitter experience of men who had been oppressed. They gave one man, the captain, the power to lead them in war. They gave another man, the quartermaster, the power to protect them from that same leader in times of peace. It is a system of checks and balances that ensures no single man can ever hold absolute power over the crew again. It is a government for the people, by the people, on a floating wooden republic of outlaws. You see this system in action every day as the quartermaster moves through the ship, settling a card game dispute here, distributing the daily ration of grog there. The system works because it is built on fairness. Everyone receives his share. But as you accept your daily portion of salted beef and hardtack, a new thought comes to mind. What exactly is that share? The question of what you eat and drink is one of the most fundamental parts of your new life. You quickly learn that the standard rations on a pirate ship are, at first, disappointingly similar to the grim menu of the merchant vessel you so gladly left behind. The foundation of your diet is still hardtack. The rock-hard flour and water biscuit, often dotted with the black specks of weevils. The main source of protein is still salted meat, either beef or pork cured in barrels of brine for so long that it is tough, chewy, and overwhelmingly salty. This is supplemented by sacks of dry peas, beans, or oatmeal. It is a diet of preservation, designed to last for months in the damp hold of a ship, not for pleasure. Your drink is much the same. Water stored in casks quickly goes foul, so alcohol is essential. The daily ration of grog, the mixture of rum and water, is a treasured ritual. A moment of warmth and cheer in a long day. It makes the stale water more bearable, and provides a brief escape from the monotony of life at sea. But here is where you discover the pirate's advantage. Unlike a merchant ship, which must sail from port to port on a strict schedule, a pirate vessel is master of its own time. Your captain is not in a hurry to deliver cargo. This gives you the freedom to supplement your diet in ways a merchant sailor could only dream of. If the ship is running low on supplies, you may stop at a small, uninhabited island. The crew goes ashore in longboats, armed not for battle, but for hunting. You spend the day tracking wild pigs or goats through the jungle, a welcome relief from the confines of the ship. The animals are brought back, and the crew builds a fire on the beach, roasting the fresh meat over a wooden grill called a buccaneer. The taste of fresh, unsalted meat is a luxury so profound it feels like a feast for a king. At sea you fish. Men trail lines from the stern of the ship, hoping to catch tuna or other large fish to be shared among the crew. But the most prized catch of all is the giant sea turtle. Turtles are plentiful in the Caribbean, easy to catch while they sleep on the surface of the water, and they are an ideal source of food. A single large turtle can feed the entire crew. Remarkably, they can be kept alive on their backs on the deck for weeks. This is the pirate's way. Living off the sea and the land. Taking what they can find. But the greatest feasts, the moments of true indulgence, come after a successful capture. When you board a captured merchant ship, the first prize is not always the captain's strongbox. It is often his pantry. While your diet is one of bland survival, a merchant captain dines well. Your crew descends upon his private stores with joyous cries. You might find barrels of fine French wine or Spanish brandy, sacks of soft white flour for baking bread, precious casks of sugar. You might find spices worth a fortune. Cinnamon, cloves, nutmeg. Best of all, you might find live chickens clucking in wooden coops, or even a pig or a cow brought along for the captain's table. That night, your ship becomes a floating banquet hall. The cook, usually just another sailor with some skill over a fire, becomes the most important man on board. The smell of roasting meat fills the air. You eat freshly baked bread instead of weevil-filled biscuits. You drink stolen wine from tin mugs, singing sea shanties with your brothers. For a few hours, you live better than any king. This is the reward. This is the merry life you signed up for. You are full for the first time in what feels like years. The ship is well stocked, and the threat of scurvy is pushed back by fresh food. But this bounty cannot protect you from everything. A slip of a knife while working the rigging. A splintered bone from a fall. A sudden raging fever. These are constant dangers. The question of what happens when you are seriously hurt or fall ill is a heavy one. In the world you left behind, a sick sailor was often seen as a useless burden. Here, among pirates, you learn that the approach is different. Born from a mixture of brutal necessity and surprising compassion. Most pirate ships do not have a professionally trained doctor. A surgeon is a highly valued prize, and if one is captured on a merchant or naval vessel, he is considered one of the most valuable assets of an attack. The pirate crew does everything it can to persuade him to join them, offering him a full share of the plunder and promising good treatment. A skilled surgeon is one of the very few men a pirate crew might actually force into service, as his knowledge is a matter of life and death for everyone. But if no doctor can be found, the role of ship's surgeon falls to whichever crewman has the most relevant skills. In many cases, this is the ship's carpenter. This may seem strange, but the logic is grimly practical. The most common major surgery at sea is amputation, and no one on board is better with a saw. The carpenter knows his tools. He knows how to make a clean, swift cut. And he is not squeamish about it. On other ships, the role might fall to the cook, for he is the man most skilled with knives. The ship's medical kit is usually a captured surgeon's chest, itself a form of treasure. Inside, you find the tools of the trade. Saws for bone. Sharp knives for flesh. Probes for exploring wounds. Forceps for pulling out musket balls. The medicines are a mixture of the effective and the dangerous. The chest contains laudanum, an opiate. A powerful painkiller made from opium that can dull the senses during surgery. It may also contain mercury, a common but toxic treatment for venereal diseases, and a variety of dried herbs and powders for treating fevers and infections. After a battle, the main deck can be transformed into a makeshift operating theater. Wounded men are laid out, and the surgeon sets to work. His methods are direct and brutal. A deep cut from a sword is stitched shut with a simple needle and thread. To stop bleeding and prevent infection in a world without antibiotics, the surgeon performs cauterization, sealing the wound by applying a red-hot piece of iron or a dollop of hot tar directly to the flesh. The smell of burning skin and the screams of the patient are a common aftermath of any fight. For a limb shattered by a cannonball or a musket shot, there is usually only one option: amputation. To remove the ruined arm or leg is the only way to prevent gangrene, a deadly infection that is almost always fatal. You are given a large dose of rum or laudanum to numb the pain, and a leather strap to bite down on to keep from biting through your own tongue. Your crewmates hold you down, and the carpenter surgeon works as quickly as he can. The survival rate for such procedures is low, but it is better than the certain death of infection. Common sicknesses like fevers and dysentery can sweep through the crowded, unsanitary ship with terrifying speed. And scurvy, the disease caused by a lack of fresh fruit, is a constant threat on long voyages. While pirates are often better fed than other sailors, they are not immune. But here, once again, the Pirate Code offers a unique form of protection. As you learned when you signed the articles, there is a system of compensation. Your crewmates care for you as best they can. If you lose an arm, a leg, or an eye in service to the ship, you are financially compensated for your loss. You are a brother, and you are not abandoned. This rudimentary system of medicine and insurance is a lifeline. But the best way to avoid the surgeon's knife is to avoid trouble in the first place. This means moving efficiently across the sea, finding prizes quickly, and knowing the route to a safe port. To do that, your ship needs more than strong backs and sharp swords. It needs a keen mind and an understanding of the heavens. You now understand how the ship is governed, how it is maintained, how its crew is cared for. But all of this would be for nothing if the ship could not find its way. In the seemingly endless expanse of the ocean, with no roads and no landmarks, the art of navigation is perhaps the most vital skill on board. Getting it wrong means more than missing a prize. It means starvation, thirst, being lost at sea forever. The responsibility for this crucial task falls to the captain, and if the crew is fortunate, to a sailing master. The sailing master is a highly skilled officer whose entire duty is to know the ship's position and plot its course. On your ship, the captain himself handles this responsibility. He is the navigator, and the lives of the entire crew rest upon his calculations. His tools are a mixture of the simple and the ingenious. His most prized possessions are his nautical charts. These are not treasure maps marked with an X. They are precious documents, hand-drawn on parchment, often taken from the captains of captured ships. They show the outlines of coastlines, the locations of known islands, warnings about dangerous currents and hidden reefs. They are frequently inaccurate, but they are the best guide you have. To know your direction, you have the magnetic compass. But direction is only half the problem. You must also know your speed. For this, the navigator uses a clever device called a chip log. It consists of a small weighted piece of wood tied to a long rope, with knots tied at regular intervals. The chip is thrown from the stern of the ship, and as the vessel moves forward, the rope unspools. Using a small sandglass to measure a precise amount of time, the navigator counts how many knots pass through his fingers. This tells him the ship's speed in knots, a unit of measurement still used by sailors today. With these tools, the navigator can determine your latitude, your position north or south of the equator. Using an instrument like a quadrant, or an astrolabe, he measures the angle of the sun at high noon or the height of the North Star at night. This angle changes depending on how far north or south you are, allowing him to calculate your latitude with reasonable accuracy. But there is one great unsolved mystery of the seas in your time: longitude. Your position east or west. There is no reliable instrument. No simple method to know how far east or west you have traveled. This is the single greatest navigational challenge of the age. To overcome it, sailors rely on a method called dead reckoning. It is more an art than a science. You begin from a known position. For example, the island of Jamaica. You know you are sailing east by the compass. You know you are traveling at 5 knots by the chip log. After 24 hours, you calculate, or reckon, your new position on the chart. In theory, you are 120 nautical miles east of Jamaica. But this is an educated guess. A strong unseen ocean current may be pushing you sideways. A storm may force you off course. A small error in measuring your speed can grow larger over days and weeks until your calculated position on the chart and your true position in the world are miles apart. The navigator's duty is a constant, careful process of calculation, observation, and intuition. A truly skilled navigator also reads the natural world. The color of the water may hint at its depth. The kinds of birds circling the ship may indicate that land is near. The patterns of the clouds and the direction of the ocean swells may reveal distant weather. It is a science of reading the clues the ocean provides. You now understand the immense skill required to guide your floating home. Day after day, you watch the horizon, a line that never changes. The navigator's art is what gives you hope that this emptiness will one day end. As you scan the sea, you are no longer just looking for a ship. You are looking for a target. The cry from the crow's nest electrifies the vessel. Sail ho! The captain, using his spyglass, confirms the sighting. A heavily laden merchant vessel sitting low in the water. It is the prize you have all been waiting for. Your ship, being faster and more agile, begins the chase. As you close the distance over the next hour, you see that your vessel is flying the English flag, the Union Jack. This, you learn, is the first step in the hunt. Deception. It is a common trick. A pirate ship may fly the colors of any nation, or no flag at all, to appear as a friendly vessel. The aim is always the same: to get as close as possible without raising alarm, cutting off the target's path of escape. The merchant crew sees you, but they have no reason to panic yet. To them, you are simply another English ship on the open sea. Then the moment for pretense ends. You are close enough now. The merchant vessel is within range of your cannons, and it can no longer outrun you. At your captain's command, the false flag is lowered. For a brief moment, your mast stands bare. The men on the other ship must be watching, their stomachs tightening with dread, wondering who you are. Then a new flag is brought on deck. It is bundled and ready. It is fastened to the halyard and hoisted up the mast for all to see. It is the flag that has come to be known as the Jolly Roger. This flag is the most powerful weapon in the pirate arsenal. More powerful than any cannon. It is a tool of psychological warfare, and its message is brutally clear. You learn that the term Jolly Roger does not refer to a single design, but to any flag used by pirates to declare their identity. The most common flag is a stark black one. In the language of the sea, black is the color of death. It stands in direct contrast to the white flag of surrender. Navies sometimes use a black flag to signal that they will give no quarter, meaning they will take no prisoners. By flying the black flag, your ship makes a promise of violence. It announces to its target that you are not bound by the laws of any nation. You are a society of your own, living by your own rules. Even more terrifying is the red flag. A red flag is a signal of pure fury. It means the pirates will show no mercy and intend to kill everyone on board. It is a declaration of merciless war. Then there are the symbols. The skull and crossbones is the most famous, and its meaning is instantly understood by any sailor. The skull is death. The crossbones the same. But there are many variations, each a distinct mark of a particular pirate captain. You might see a skeleton holding an hourglass, a warning that your time is running out. You might see a bleeding heart pierced by a spear, a promise of a painful end. The pirate Calico Jack Rackham used a skull above 2 crossed swords. Blackbeard used a horned skeleton raising a cup in one hand and spearing a bleeding heart with the other. The entire purpose of this flag, you realize, is to make a real fight unnecessary. Piracy is a business. A bloody battle means damaged ships, spent ammunition, and dead or wounded crewmen, reducing the number of hands to share the work and the prize. The ideal attack is one in which no one is harmed. The Jolly Roger is the tool to achieve that. It is an advertisement. The more fearsome a captain's reputation, and the more terrifying his flag, the more likely a merchant crew is to surrender without resistance. The flag declares that you are what they fear most. That you have abandoned their world and its laws. That you do not fear death, and therefore they should fear you. It offers a choice. Surrender your cargo now, and you may live. Resist, and you will be sent to the bottom of the sea. You watch as the black flag, your flag, rises to the top of the mast and unfurls in the wind. Across the water, you sense the wave of terror that must be spreading over the merchant deck. They now face a grim decision. Surrender and hope for mercy. Or fight and face the violence your flag has promised. The captain of the merchant ship chooses to fight. A puff of smoke rises from his vessel, followed by the crack of a small cannon fired in defiance. The shot is poorly aimed and falls harmlessly into the sea. Your captain gives the order to engage. This is the moment when his authority is absolute, and the entire ship becomes a finely tuned weapon under his command. The helmsman steers with skill, maneuvering your vessel into position. The aim is not a reckless collision. It is a precise naval tactic known as crossing the T. This means placing your ship so that its side faces the bow, or better yet the stern, of the enemy vessel. The advantage is immense. It allows you to unleash all the cannons on one side of your ship in a devastating broadside against the enemy's narrowest point, while they can fire only a few guns, if any, in return. On your deck, the scene is one of controlled urgency. The quartermaster calls out orders, and the gun crews work with practiced speed. They are not loading simple cannonballs. For the first volley, they often use special ammunition designed not to sink the ship, but to cripple it. They may load chain shot, 2 smaller cannonballs linked by a metal chain. When fired, the chain spins through the air like a great scythe, tearing through the enemy's sails and rigging, leaving the ship unable to steer. Or they may use grapeshot, a canvas bag filled with dozens of small iron balls. When fired, it turns the cannon into a massive shotgun, meant to sweep the enemy deck clear of sailors. Your captain waits for the perfect moment. When the swell of the sea lifts your side of the ship, he gives the command. Fire. The world erupts in sound. The roar of a dozen cannons firing at once is a physical force. A deafening thunder that shudders through the deck and into your bones. A thick, acrid cloud of black gunpowder smoke engulfs the ship at once, filling your nose and mouth with the sharp scent of sulfur. For a moment, you are blind and half deaf, caught in a storm of your own making. As the smoke drifts away, you see the effect of the broadside. The merchant ship's main mast is cracked. Its sails hang in tatters. Confusion spreads across its deck. It is crippled. Now you close in for the final stage. The helmsman brings your ship alongside the stricken vessel. Men stand ready with grappling hooks, heavy iron hooks fixed to thick ropes. They hurl them across the narrowing gap, and the hooks bite deep into the enemy railing. With a powerful heave, your crew pulls tight, and the 2 ships grind together with a harsh crunch of timber. They are bound fast. A bridge formed for the boarding party. While this happens, several of your crew have climbed high into the rigging. They are the sharpshooters. From their perch, they fire their long muskets down onto the enemy deck, aiming at any officer who tries to rally resistance. Then the quartermaster gives the final order. Boarders away. With a fierce shout, you and a dozen others surge over the rail. A pistol in one hand, a sword in the other. You know the pistol holds a single shot. After that, it is little more than a club. The real work is done at close quarters with cold steel. The fighting is confused and desperate, but it is brief. The merchant crew is shaken, outnumbered, and unwilling to die for cargo that is not their own. Faced with determined pirates, they soon cast down their weapons and surrender. The struggle ends within minutes. The merchant captain formally yields. Silence settles over the decks, broken only by the groans of the wounded and the faint crackle of small fires. The surge of battle fades, replaced by the heavy smell of sweat, fear, and gunpowder. The prize is yours. With the captured crews subdued and confined, the fury of combat gives way to a focused and disciplined process. This is not a chaotic frenzy of looting. The quartermaster now commands the prize, and the first rule of piracy is enforced without exception. All plunder belongs to the company as a whole. You learn that any pirate caught concealing even a single coin or a small piece of jewelry before the general division would face severe punishment. To steal from your crewmates is the greatest betrayal. The entire structure of trust and fairness that binds the brotherhood depends upon honesty at this moment. The quartermaster and a small, trusted party begin a careful inventory of the captured vessel. You see now what plunder truly means. It is seldom a chest overflowing with gold. The true wealth lies in the cargo. The hold of the merchant ship may contain vast barrels of sugar or tobacco from the Americas, indigo dye from India, fine silk textiles from the East. These goods are the substance of fortune, worth immense sums to the right buyer. And the plunder does not end with the cargo. The ship itself holds great value. Its cannons, gunpowder, and cannonballs strengthen your own vessel. Its sails, coils of fresh rope, anchors, and carpentry tools are valuable naval stores, difficult to obtain at sea. Even the personal belongings of the captured crew and any wealthy passengers are gathered. Their clothes, their wigs, their silver buckles, any money they carry. All are added to the common pile. Nothing is ignored. When the inventory is finished and the valuable goods have been transferred to your ship, you and your crewmates sail for a pirate-friendly port. It may be a busy and lawless haven such as Nassau in the Bahamas, or a quiet hidden cove where discreet merchants are willing to trade. There, the quartermaster and captain negotiate the sale of the captured cargo, turning barrels of sugar and bolts of cloth into hard coin. When everything has been sold, the most important ritual of pirate life begins. The entire crew gathers on deck. The quartermaster stands before you with the total sum of the profits. The first duty is to settle the ship's debt to its own men. The compensation fund is opened. The man who lost an eye in the last fight is called forward and given his 100 pieces of 8. The man whose arm was shattered by a musket ball receives his payment. The promise written in the articles is honored first. It is the foundation of your society. When the wounded have been paid, the remaining wealth is divided among the rest of the crew according to the shares set down in the articles. The quartermaster, holding a list of every man's name, calls you forward one by one. There is no secrecy. No hidden dealings. The process is open to all. The captain receives his 2 shares. The quartermaster his 1.5. Then your name is called. You step forward, and the quartermaster counts out your single full share of the prize into a heavy cloth bag. You feel the weight of silver and gold in your hand. It is more money than you have ever held at one time. More than you could expect to earn in 10 years of honest, grinding labor on a merchant vessel. This is the moment that makes everything bearable. The fear, the boredom, the danger. All of it led to this. This bag of coins is not merely wealth. It is independence. It is respect. It is your reward. Earned as a free man and given freely by your brothers. You now possess your share. For the first time in your life, you are a wealthy man. Your ship lies safely at anchor in a harbor alive with movement. The long, disciplined months at sea are finished. The time for labor has ended, and the time for the merry part of a short life and a merry one begins. The call for shore leave is given. You and the rest of the crew crowd into longboats and row toward the beach. The feeling of stepping onto solid ground after months of ceaseless motion is strange and welcome. You have come to a place like Nassau in the Bahamas, unofficial capital of the Pirate Republic. At once you see that this is no orderly colonial town with neat streets and government buildings. It is a sprawling settlement of rough wooden taverns, canvas tents, and hastily raised huts clustered along a sandy shore. The air is thick with the scent of roasting meat, cheap rum, tobacco smoke, and the sweat of unwashed bodies. There are no constables here. No patrols of the Royal Navy. No governor to impose the law. This is a place of freedom and disorder. Your share of the plunder, which felt so heavy and secure aboard ship, now feels like a fire in your pocket. You and your crewmates head for the heart of any pirate haven. The tavern. Inside, the noise is overwhelming. The room is crowded with pirates from many ships, all drinking, shouting, and laughing. You press your way to a rough wooden bar and exchange one of your silver coins for a bottle of rum. Not the watered grog of the ship, but the strong and fiery spirit itself. The drink is strong and burns as it goes down, but it carries the taste of freedom and success. You soon see that a pirate's money is spent as quickly and fiercely as it is earned. In one corner of the tavern, a group of men gamble, throwing dice against the head of a barrel. Men who are brothers at sea, who would stand together in battle, now face one another as rivals in a game of chance. You watch a man lose a month's hard-won pay on a single throw of the dice. He laughs, orders another drink, and calls for a new game. This is the pirate spirit. Their lives are a wager, and so is their coin. They live under the constant shadow of violent death. To save for a distant future that may never come seems foolish. The belief is to live fully in the present. A short life, but a merry one. You spend your silver on things denied to you at sea. You eat roasted pork until you are satisfied. You purchase a new shirt of soft linen to replace your stiff, salt-stained one. You visit a trader who serves the pirate trade and buy a fine pistol and a pouch of lead shot, investing in the tools that may win your next prize. For a week, life passes in a blur of drink, food, gambling, and noise. The ordered discipline of the ship dissolves into unchecked freedom. But it does not endure. In time, you reach into your pocket and find it empty. Your full share, enough to support a family for a year, has vanished. Spent on rich meals, strong drink, a new weapon, and a lingering ache in your head. As the last coins disappear from the crew's pockets, the quartermaster calls you back. The ship has been repaired. It is restocked with fresh water and provisions. It is time to return to sea. You climb into the longboat once more. Your head throbs. Your purse is light. A new pistol rests at your belt, and the memory of a wild week lingers in your mind. The noise of the harbor fades behind you, replaced by the ordered world of the ship. You feel the sharp contrast of this life. A steady swing between strict labor and reckless release. With no land in sight and no prey upon the horizon, the days stretch into a slow and unbroken pattern. The duties of the watch occupy your hands, but your thoughts require diversion. You learn that resisting the heavy boredom of the open ocean is as vital as tending the sails or the guns. Here the culture of your brotherhood reveals itself. The most valued pastime is music. You are fortunate that your crew includes a fiddler. He is prized almost as highly as the carpenter. He is excused from the harshest labor, yet he receives a full share of plunder for his skill. In the quiet hours after the evening meal, he sits upon a coil of rope upon the deck. The sound of his fiddle rises and drifts across the dark water. A lonely, beautiful strain in the vastness of the sea. You learn that there are two kinds of songs aboard ship. The first are sea shanties. These are not sung for pleasure. They are songs of labor. When a heavy sail must be hoisted, or when the great anchor must be raised by turning the capstan, a large wooden winch upon the deck, a lead sailor called the shantyman sings the opening line. The rest of the crew answers in unison, pulling or pushing together upon the final word. The steady rhythm of the shanty binds the strength of many men into one force, making the burden lighter and the task swifter. The second kind of song is the forecastle ballad. The forecastle, often called the foccele, is the forward part of the upper deck where the crew gathers during off-watch hours. There a man with a strong voice may sing a long narrative ballad. These songs tell of famous naval battles, of daring pirates, of lost loves waiting at home, of tragic storms and strange events at sea. They are the oral history of your world, passed from ship to ship, learned by memory and repeated by voice. They give the crew a shared culture and a shared past. Another way to pass the long hours is through games of chance. When coin is gone, other things are wagered. a future share of plunder, a week's ration of rum, even the shirt from a man's back. Small groups gather with worn and greasy decks of cards. Others throw dice carved from scraps of bone. Such games can breed tension. The ship's articles speak clearly on the matter. Cheating is a grave offense. When disputes rise, the quartermaster is called to settle them before anger turns to violence. Yet perhaps the most important pastime of all is storytelling. In a world where many men cannot read or write, the spoken word is the chief source of knowledge and amusement. During the quiet hours of the night watch, you sit with your crewmates and listen. Some tell boasts of their own deeds, tales made larger with each telling. Some recount ghost stories. The Flying Dutchman. Phantom ships said to drift through fog and storm. Others share news gathered in the last port. Which governors offer pardons? Which pirate hunters patrol the coast? Which merchant vessels are rumored to carry rich cargo? In these quiet exchanges, legends are formed. Men spin their yarns to pass the dark hours, to strengthen their names, and to give shape to their lives. These songs and games and stories bind the crew together. They turn a gathering of rough sailors into a community. As you listen to a sailor speak of the exploits of Henry Morgan, you begin to reflect on the other tales you have heard. Stories of enemies forced to walk the plank. Of vast chests of treasure buried upon lonely islands, marked by secret maps. With time, you begin to see that many of these tales do not match the life you now live. The truth is often simpler, more practical, in some ways more compelling than the legends. Consider first the myth of buried treasure. The image is powerful. A chest of gold and silver hidden upon a deserted shore. A map drawn with care. An X marking the spot. Yet in truth, such events were rare. You know the pirate belief well. Live for today. Tomorrow you may hang. Money earned is meant to be spent upon shore leave, not hidden away for a distant future. The plunder belongs to the entire crew and is divided into shares. A captain who sought to bury the company's wealth for himself would be swiftly removed. Perhaps worse. Such an act would betray the very heart of the pirate code, the equal sharing of every prize. Why hide gold in the earth when it can be exchanged for rum, fine clothing, and pleasure at once? The legend of buried treasure rests largely upon a single and unusual case. Captain William Kidd. Kidd began as a privateer, a man granted a letter of marque to attack enemy ships during war. When he turned to piracy, he was declared an outlaw. Knowing he was hunted, Kidd buried part of his wealth before sailing to New York in hope of a pardon. He was captured despite his effort. The tale of his hidden treasure stirred the imagination of many, and in later years inspired Robert Louis Stevenson to write Treasure Island. It is this book, more than historical fact, that shaped the legend known today. The second great myth is that of walking the plank. The image is vivid. A captive with bound hands forced to step along a narrow board that juts from the ship's side into waters said to be filled with sharks. Yet this too is largely fiction. There are almost no reliable accounts from the golden age of piracy that describe such a practice. It was an invention of later writers, appearing in 19th century tales and fixed in popular imagination by J. M. Barrie's Peter Pan. Pirates could be ruthless when required, but they were practical men. If they wished to kill a captive, there were quicker methods. A thrust of a sword. A single pistol shot. Even casting a man overboard without ceremony. The slow and elaborate ritual of the plank belonged to the stage and the page, not to common practice at sea. The final legend is that of the pirate captain with a bright parrot upon his shoulder. Like buried treasure, this image owes much to Treasure Island and to the character of Long John Silver, whose parrot was named Captain Flint. It is possible that sailors traveling through tropical waters kept exotic animals such as parrots or monkeys. Yet it was never a common feature of pirate life. A loud and restless bird would be a hindrance during a silent approach or a fierce engagement. The parrot remains a charming symbol, but it was no standard part of a pirate's attire. You now see a world more plainly. It is not made of treasure maps and talking birds. It is built upon elected leaders, written articles, shared spoils, and a stern code of fairness. It is a harsh and ordered existence shaped by necessity. Yet even as you grow accustomed to it, you sense that it cannot endure. The great empires of Europe will not permit these floating republics to thrive forever. As you visit ports, you hear murmurs of change. Fewer pardons. Larger rewards offered for pirate heads. Stronger warships dispatched from England with a single purpose. The rumors prove true. England, Spain, and France, once consumed by wars against one another, now turn their attention to the sea lanes. With treaties signed and fleets no longer needed for grand naval conflicts, their ships seek a new enemy: pirates. The first step is measured and deliberate. An offer before force. The king's pardon. A proclamation issued from London promises full forgiveness to any pirate who surrenders before a fixed date. All crimes set aside. A chance to return to lawful life without the shadow of the gallows. This offer divides the brotherhood. For older men wearied by danger and hardship, the pardon is a path to safety. Some accept. Benjamin Hornigold, once a mentor to Blackbeard, is among them. Others distrust the promise. They see surrender as submission, as a betrayal of the freedom they claimed. The unity of pirate havens weakens. When mercy fails to end piracy, strength follows. Royal Navy warships begin to patrol the waters of the Caribbean and the American coast with renewed purpose. These are not the slow and heavy merchant vessels you are used to pursuing. These are frigates. Fast warships built for speed and armed with rows of powerful cannons. They are commanded by seasoned naval officers and crewed by disciplined Marines trained for battle. Your pirate sloop, so effective against a merchantman, cannot withstand the strength of a naval frigate in open combat. Along with the warships come determined governors sent with a clear purpose: to end piracy. A man named Woodes Rogers, himself a former privateer who understands your world, is appointed governor of the Bahamas. He sails into Nassau, the heart of your republic, backed by naval force. In one hand he carries the king's pardon. In the other, the threat of overwhelming power. It is a careful blend of mercy and force. Other governors, such as Alexander Spotswood of Virginia, pursue the hunt with equal resolve. Spotswood directs his efforts toward capturing Blackbeard, dispatching ships and soldiers on bold expeditions, sometimes beyond his own authority. The harshest blow is the use of former pirates to hunt their own kind. Men who have accepted the pardon, such as Benjamin Hornigold, know the hidden coves, the tactics, and the weaknesses of their former companions. They are employed by governors like Rogers to track and destroy the remaining bands. The brotherhood is no longer united. It is divided and turned inward. You feel the pressure mounting. The freedom once seized now seems fragile. The final chapter of the Golden Age has begun. The question before every pirate still sailing under the black flag is no longer where the next prize lies, but how his story will conclude. The Golden Age of piracy, for all its noise and flame, was brief. For every man who entered this life, the same question lingered. How would it end? There was no single answer. Some met their fate as they had lived. In battle. Amid cannon smoke and drawn blades. Death in combat was an accepted risk. In a clash with a naval vessel or a well-armed merchantman, a pirate might fall in an instant. Struck by a musket ball. Cut down upon a crowded deck. Or killed by flying splinters when a cannonball shattered wood into deadly shards. Blackbeard himself, one of the most feared captains of the age, died in close combat against Lieutenant Robert Maynard and his men. For some, such an end may have seemed preferable to capture. A final stand in keeping with the life they had chosen. Another ending was more public and more humiliating. The gallows. A pirate taken alive by the Royal Navy was chained and carried to a colonial port such as Port Royal in Jamaica. There he stood trial in an admiralty court, a maritime court without a jury of equals. For a known pirate, the verdict was seldom in doubt. The sentence was hanging. The execution was conducted before a large crowd, meant as a warning to all who might be tempted by piracy. In some cases, the bodies of notorious captains were placed in iron cages known as gibbets, and displayed at the harbor's entrance as a lasting reminder. There was also a punishment that came not from governors or naval officers, but from within the crew itself. For serious offenses against the company, a pirate might be marooned. This was exile. Left alone upon a remote island with little more than a small supply of water, a musket, and a few rounds of powder. It was a sentence that tested a man's will to survive in solitude. The offender would be set ashore on a deserted island with only the barest provisions. A flask of water. A knife. Sometimes a pistol with a single charge. Then the longboat would pull away, leaving him to face the sun, the hunger, and the silence alone. Survival was not impossible, yet for most it meant isolation and a slow struggle against the elements. But for every pirate who met a violent or lonely end, many others simply stepped away from the life. This was the path opened by the king's pardon. As naval patrols increased and the risk grew greater, whole crews chose to accept the offer of amnesty. They sailed into colonial ports, swore loyalty to the crown, and in that moment their crimes were forgiven. Thousands of former pirates returned quietly to ordinary lives. For them, the Golden Age was not a final stand, but a brief and reckless chapter. And what of the dream of retirement with great wealth? That vision belonged more to story than to fact. The pirate habit of spending freely left little saved. Tales of men such as Henry Every, who was said to vanish with vast treasure and live in comfort beyond reach, remain uncertain and likely exaggerated. Thus the endings were many. Death in battle, the gallows, marooning, pardon and return, or the rare and doubtful dream of lasting fortune. When the pirates themselves disappeared from the sea, their reality began to blur. The hardship, the coarse food, the unending labor, and the constant danger slowly faded from memory. In their place rose something more enduring. Legend. The shift from fact to story began early, shaped in part by a widely read book. In 1724, while the last of the pirates were still being pursued, a volume appeared in London titled A General History of the Robberies and Murders of the Most Notorious Pirates. It was published under the name Captain Charles Johnson, though the true author remains uncertain. The book drew great attention. It contained accurate details about pirate articles, ships, and daily life, likely gathered from court records and interviews. Yet it also carried drama and embellishment. Johnson recounted the lives of Blackbeard, Calico Jack Rackham, and the female pirates and Bonnie and Mary Red, shaping them into vivid and memorable figures. In doing so, he fixed their stories in the public imagination. This work marked an early step in turning scattered events into a coherent legend. For many decades, it defined how pirates were viewed. Later, in the 19th century, another writer extended the transformation. The Scottish author Robert Louis Stevenson, seeking an adventure tale, drew upon earlier legends and in 1883 published Treasure Island. This novel did more than any other work to form the modern image of piracy. Stevenson took the uncommon episode of Captain Kidd burying wealth and made hidden treasure the central aim of pirates. The secret map with an X marking the spot arose from his pages. His creation of Long John Silver, the one-legged cook with a parrot named Captain Flint, gave shape to the enduring pirate figure. From that point forward, the image of the pirate as charming yet dangerous, guided by treasure maps and accompanied by a talkative bird, settled into popular imagination. Many of the familiar images of piracy can be traced to that single novel. The final stage of transformation came in the 20th century with the growth of cinema. Filmmakers brought the adventurous spirit of Treasure Island to the screen. Actors such as Errol Flynn in the 1930s and 1940s shaped the figure of the swashbuckler. A graceful and daring swordsman who swings from rigging, crosses blades with ease, and wins admiration with a smile. In these films, pirates were no longer feared criminals. They became bold and attractive heroes. From this tradition emerged the modern figure known today. A character such as Captain Jack Sparrow in the Pirates of the Caribbean films carries the combined influence of Stevenson's Long John Silver and the cinematic swashbucklers who followed. He is witty, cunning, and seemingly unbound by restraint, living in a world of spectacle and adventure. In this way, the change is complete. The historical pirate, often a desperate sailor seeking escape from harsh conditions, has been replaced by the imagined adventurer who chooses freedom above all else. The real pirates ruled the seas only for a short and turbulent time. Yet the legend that grew from their lives has endured. It is a tale of rebellion and independence that continues to capture the imagination. The reality was harsher and far less romantic, but the legend remains powerful. And so the voyage through this world comes to its close. From the working decks of merchant ships to the rise and fall of the pirate brotherhood, and onward to the stories that reshape them into enduring figures of myth, the journey has reached its end.